Hey guys, Mr. T here. Now I know what you're thinking. It has been a super long time since I've done one of these videos. I did the 9th Amendment. It is uploading to YouTube as we speak, but I filmed the 9th Amendment like 2.5 months ago, but life hit, school, teaching, everything just hit all at once, so I didn't have time to actually edit it and stuff like that. And needless to say, I didn't have time to film new videos. Mobile America doesn't count because those are like on the spot. But here's the thing: I'm back now. I'm on winter break until the following school year, or until the school year resumes back up. So I have a bunch of time to get new videos in. So my goal is to get through at least the 16th Amendment. Okay, we're on the 10th today. My goal is to get through at least the 16th Amendment by 2017, which is about 3 weeks from now. I know it's ambitious, but I think I can do it. So, with that being said, welcome back to our amendment videos. We are on our 10th amendment. The 9th Amendment is uploading to YouTube as we speak. Now, this amendment is one that I actually like talking about because it's one that most people get confused with, and that is states' rights. Now, I know what you're thinking. I guarantee you have heard this before. If you have lived in the United States for more than a month, you have heard the term states' rights before. You probably are being like, no, I haven't, but you probably just weren't paying attention. Now, states' rights, what is it? The United States is a unique place because we are one country with 50 individual states. Now, other countries out there, they have states too, or provinces, like Canada has provinces, might as well call them states, they're almost the same thing. But in the United States, ours are a little unique because we have this thing called double sovereignty. And you're asking yourself, what is sovereignty, let alone double? If you don't know what double is, please go back to first grade. But the word sovereignty basically means like a nation or a state or a country. Sorry, not state, but total other side topic. But it means like a country, some type of country, some type of power. Like the United States is a sovereign nation, which means we control ourselves. Great Britain is a sovereign nation. Russia, is a sovereign nation. China is a sovereign nation. Japan is a sovereign nation. You see what I'm getting at, okay? Sovereign means like you control your nation. And the thing about the United States is we have a double sovereignty. We have the United States as a whole, all 50 states, Puerto Rico, Guam, all of our territories put together. That's the United States. We are one country. Then you have 50 individual states. And the thing that's unique about us is our states, for some circumstances, our individual states kind of act as their own countries, okay? And that's where states' rights comes in. Now, states' rights, just to kind of give you a little history. So states' rights, we put it into play because we didn't want our country to come together because at the time of our revolution, we were fearful of federal governments. And federal is the power in Washington. Washington, D.C. is the federal government. Okay? Congress, Senate, that's all federal. And we were scared of a federal government because of what happened with Great Britain. So we wanted our states, our individual states, to still have power. Fast forward into the Civil War. During the Civil War time, when all the states of the South started leaving the country, they left under states' rights. They left for reasons like slavery and stuff like that, but they used states' rights as the justification to be able to leave. Fast forward all the way up to today, states' rights has a pretty big meaning, unlike citizens' rights from the 9th Amendment. Now, getting into the legal aspect of it. This whole point of states' rights is to make sure that, or the 10th Amendment, is to make sure states still have some level of their own government, basically, okay? The Constitution even says that the federal government will ensure that every state has a Republican style of government, basically vote for our own laws, things like that. And we are given a lot of autonomy, or freedom, basically. I mean, a lot of people think that Congress and the Senate and the federal government controls a lot of stuff, but they really don't. If you really look at every state on an individual basis, they are very different. I mean, let's just use gun rights, for example, mainly because I have 2 guns sitting right there. I live in the state of Arizona where we have super relaxed gun laws. I could walk into Walmart and 25 minutes later walk out of there with a gun. I literally did that on my 18th birthday. Move right over to the state right next to us, California. It takes months to even get a paper that says you're cleared to buy a gun, let alone actually going and then having to buy the gun. So this is where states' rights come in. every state has vastly different laws. Something that would be perfectly okay in one state, you could get potentially time in prison in another state for it. Okay? That's where states' rights come in. And the whole point behind states' rights is, it basically says that if it doesn't state it in the Constitution, the government can't, or the federal government, Congress, D.C., can't impose it upon the states. Now, this was made true in the United States versus SPAGUE in 1931. The Supreme Court did affirm that the 10th Amendment did limit the federal government, federal means D.C., Washington, Congress, that kind of stuff, to what is in the Constitution. So if it's in the Constitution, if the Constitution says the federal government can do it, then by all means the federal government can do it. States' rights has nothing to do with that if the Constitution says that the federal government can do that. And I'm going to get into situations like that in a second. But the other thing is, if it doesn't say the federal government can do it, then the states under the 10th Amendment can kind of do whatever they literally can do whatever they want if the federal government isn't given that power in the Constitution. So if it doesn't say it in the Constitution, the states can do whatever they want. Literally can do whatever they want if it doesn't say it in the Constitution. Okay? And we're going to get into a couple situations about that here in a second. But a couple more court cases. The next one is New York versus United States in 1992. This was kind of the first 10th Amendment court case in the modern era. Okay, modern be like the, millennial era, 90s, 2000s. And it basically said that states don't have to adopt regulations. So if the federal government makes a law, a state doesn't have to adopt that regulation. So basically the state doesn't have to follow what the federal government said. Now, again, if it says it in the Constitution, they have to follow it. But if it's like a law, and the law that the New York case is about waste management and waste disposal, and it said that if you didn't do certain things with your waste, that the state would be at fault for it, the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. You can't put that punishment on the state when it doesn't already state it in the Constitution. Okay? The other thing is Garcia v. San Antonio Metropolitan Transit Authority. I had to write that down. I forgot to write the date. I'll have the date down here at the bottom. But it basically said that there were two ways of determining if a law violated the 10th Amendment, or states' rights. It said that if it was traditional for the state to do that, or integral for the state to function. So basically, if the law or what the state was already doing was a traditional thing that it did, or if the law violated an integral part of that state, then the 10th Amendment applied. This court case, the Garcia v. San Antonio, threw that out the window, and it left it up to future court cases. So now, if the Supreme Court or any court wants to say that a law violates the 10th Amendment, they pretty much make up their own standards for if it violates it or not. Usually it falls along the lines of, does it give the federal government the power in the Constitution? If no, then it violates the amendment. Now, here is two final things. The first thing is the Commerce Clause. In Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3 of the United States, we have this thing called the Commerce Clause, which gives the federal government the right to regulate commerce. And commerce is basically money, or not money, but like trade, marketing, selling, buying, things like that. It expressly gives the federal government the right to regulate this stuff. And the federal government uses that. They use the Commerce Clause all the time to regulate things in states to bypass this 10th Amendment. Because if it has to do with money or market or commerce or anything like that, the federal government has jurisdiction over it because of the Commerce Clause, and they can get around the 10th Amendment that way. The other thing is, the other way that the federal government is able to get around the 10th Amendment is by withholding federal funds. The biggest example of this was in South Dakota v. DOLE in 1987. In the early 1980s, the federal government passed the Minimum Drinking Age Act, or law, which set the minimum drinking age at 21. However, because minimum drinking age wasn't in the Constitution, the states didn't have to follow it. However, what the law said was, if you don't set your minimum drinking age at 21, you lose your federal highway funding. Okay? Now, in South Dakota v. DOLE, the Supreme Court said the federal government can do that. The federal government is allowed to withhold money from the states, okay, if they don't pass certain laws, such as, you know, raising the minimum drinking age to 21 and just a whole bunch of other things. Okay, one was about the National Highway Act, where they regulated this, or the National Speed Limit Act, where they regulated the speed limit, and things like that. Okay, so the federal government can get around the 10th Amendment by withholding, or not get around it, but kind of go side by side with it by withholding federal funds. All right, so I know I'm out of time. I've gone over, which I didn't go over last video, but I've gone over this video. But now here's the thing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're probably thinking, why did it skip like that? I messed up the last like 2 minutes of the last video, so I decided to edit this part in. But that is all the time we have today. Stick around for the 11th Amendment, okay, which will be the next one. And as always, stay beautiful, Americans, and I hope you keep watching the videos. Peace.